Hey y'all, welcome to the Throttle podcast. I'm your host, Earnest, here tonight with just myself, so let's just get into it real quick here with this somewhat short of an episode, but some other news will start on the NHRA side. NHRA has revealed the next 5 names that will go on to the top 75 greatest drivers list. They are Doug Coletta, who won his second Top Fuel Championship in 3 seasons. Matt Hagan finished runner-up to Proc and Funny Car, and then Jason Lyon, Eddie Kroick, and Sean Bellemeyer. And also, I do apologize if I mess up the pronunciation of any of the names on this week's episode. There's a lot of hard to pronounce names, so I'm just putting that warning out there. But yeah, also Rockingham Dragway and Bristol Dragway are making major improvements to their drag strips ahead of this season. Bristol in particular is putting brand new pavement all the way down the drag strip, which will be challenging when teams come to Thunder Valley this June. But getting into some more some larger news now, we got some NASCAR rule updates. First, drivers will now be disallowed from earning the Xfinity fastest lap point once the car has gone to the garage. So, yeah, which prevents what happened with, I think of, Larson at Mexico City and I think also Chicago, too. Now, one thing to note, if the driver sets the fastest lap and then goes into the garage, the fastest lap point will still count. But once the driver goes into the garage, they cannot come back out onto the track and earn the fastest lap point. So, key rule change there. Some lower series rule change is if there is one lug nut unsecured, which remember the O'Reilly series and the Craftsman Truck series, they still use 5 lug nuts. And, ARCA and lower series too, but if one lug nut is unsecured, teams will lose pit selection for the next race, speaking towards O'Reilly's series and the truck series. But if 2 lug nuts are unsecured, it's a fine of $5,000 in the O'Reilly series and $2,500 in the truck series and a 1-race crew member suspension. If there's 4 missing lug nuts, or I would assume more than 4 missing lug nuts, but if there's 4 missing lug nuts, it's a race disqualification in both of those series. Also, NASCAR will hold potential 4 additional spots for the basically OEM provisionals for Ram, which is returning NASCAR in the Truck Series to start anyways. But in the first 3 Truck Series races, if Ram fails to make the 36 truck field on speed, which the first 3 races are Daytona, Echo Park Speedway, aka Atlanta, and the street race at St. Petersburg, one of the Ram trucks, if any of them, fail to qualify on speed, they would just be added to the back of the field, leading to a maximum of a 40 truck field if necessary. And for Ram's growth in the sport and to get into NASCAR, with Ram and eventually probably going to be Dodge back into O'Reilly series and into Cup, it's definitely necessary. And speaking back towards Ram and in the truck series with Kaulig, I'm definitely very curious how Kaulig will do this year, being that they're the factory team, and it's undoubtedly that when Dodge comes back to the Cup series that Kaulig is gonna switch from Chevy to Dodge. But I'm curious, with Kaulig being the factory team, they're the only 5 Ram trucks out there, so they only have to share data with themselves. So I'm curious how much of an advantage that can be for them, especially with Corey Haim's not at Tricon anymore. So the truck series is definitely wide open, kind of like how the O'Reilly series is wide open this year without Connor Zilisch. So, and also NASCAR lowered the minimum age for competing on the 1.25 mile and shorter tracks in the O'Reilly series to 17, which is in between the 16-year-old minimum age for trucks and the 18-year-old minimum age for Cup. But getting into some other news now, specifically with Ford, with their 2026 launch that they had last week in Detroit. Red Bull and their sister team, Racing Bulls, in speaking towards F1 now, they unveiled their new liveries, which honor their new partnership with Ford this season, as Ford returns to F1 for the first time in 22 years. And their liveries, they definitely have a more bluish chrome on them than the teams have run in the past, which honestly I think it looks good for one, and for two, I mean, sure, the Ford powertrains are made in Detroit, and while it's not totally American, I mean, for an American, F1 trying to make an impact in America, and plus you had the F1 movie that came out this past year, they're definitely making an impact, and they're definitely chopping into NASCAR's reign as the most popular American motorsport, along with NHRA and IndyCar as well, which IndyCar has started to release their new line of commercials. They had Joseph Newgarden's brand new commercial this year that just came out. It's definitely it's an interesting commercial. It's got a nice murder mystery type aesthetic to it. But yeah, back to F1 anyways. Haas F1, with their new partnership with Toyota Gazoo Racing, they unveiled their 2026 livery today, and it's much more of a clean white paint scheme than years past. It's kind of, I don't want to say they've like sucked the color out of their previous paint schemes, because that makes it sound bad, when in reality, like, this year's paint scheme is, in my opinion, better than the other ones in the past. There's been a lot of clean schemes so far released in F1, whether it's actual race liveries or like Cadillac's like shakedown car, which of course their Cadillac's actual livery will be released in a commercial during the Super Bowl on February 8th. So yeah. And in more F1 livery news, speaking of which, Audi is the next team to showcase their livery, which will happen tomorrow, Tuesday, January 20th, and then Mercedes on Thursday, and then both Ferrari and Alpine on Friday. So yeah, and then the other kind of big storyline that we've been all waiting, getting back towards NHRA now, Austin Prock will drive for Ford and drive for Bob Tasca's team, as Bob Tasca will step into an owner role for the foreseeable future. We all kind of figured that if Prock wasn't going to be a part of his own team, that he was going to be driving for Bob Tasca's racing team, but I think we all kind of figured that it was going to be a second funny car. But instead, it's Bob Tasca is going to step into an owner role and step out of the driver's seat to let Prock drive his car. So I think that's very interesting. But can Prock go 3 in a row for championships in funny car despite no longer driving for John Force Racing? And I really do think Top Fuel and funny car might be some of the most wide open that we've ever seen in the 75-year history of NHRA. But we'll see. And to wrap up the news for Ford in Detroit, Ford on the NASCAR side, they will run the Mustang Dark Horse SC. I don't really know what the SC stands for, but that'll be starting in 2027. I'm not really sure why they would switch to another model car, being that they just started running the Ford Mustang Dark Horse at the start of 2024. But focusing on a broader scale, I'm kind of concerned about Ford's involvement in NASCAR. I believe there's only 2 teams that are in the O'Reilly series that are even running with Fords this year, and plus with Ram and almost certainly eventually Dodge making their way back into NASCAR, we might have bigger problems on our hands. Could Ford leave NASCAR? I don't really want to spit that out and say that, but it's not the craziest thing to say. I'm trying to think, like, the 3 biggest teams right now with, I think all it is for NASCAR with Fords in the Cup Series, if I'm not mistaken, is the 3 cars at Penske, 3 cars at Front Row, 3 cars at RFK, and then Josh Berry at Wood Brothers. And I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, we could see a world where, if Dodge comes back to NASCAR, we could see maybe, just maybe, RFK and Penske jump ship back to Dodge. I mean, that would not be the craziest thing in the world. And then all of a sudden, you're down to like 4 Fords. I mean, I don't know. And that's if Front Row even stays in business, because we discovered that when the antitrust lawsuit was going on, that Bob Jenkins has never even made a profit on Front Row ever in its couple decade history. So I don't know. Yeah, we might have some larger problems on our hands. I mean, and plus Ford is back in F1 now, so I don't know, but yeah, so some interesting details from Detroit with Ford Racing's season launch. But getting into the other big talking point now, the Chili Bowl Nationals. Emerson Axum, again, I'm sorry if I pronounced these names wrong, but he won the 40th Chili Bowl Nationals inside the SageNet Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Nice little temporary dirt track, but that was last Saturday night, and he took home the new and much larger Golden Driller Trophy. In the A main, he took the lead from Larson in the opening laps, and then after Larson flipped from second, Emerson was able to hold off some late challengers in the closing laps in order to win, including Kevin Thomas Jr., who went from 18th in the A main of 24 cars and went up all the way to second, but wasn't quite able to get the win. So, yeah. Also, earlier in the day, on Saturday, we had some legendary soup runs. Both Darren Nida and Mac Leopard made 9 main event starts in one day, which is tied. Both of them are tied for the new Chili Bowl record in that statistic. And if we focus on Mac Leopard for a second, he's tied with Naida for the most main event starts in one day with 9. He's the first to win 4 features in one day, and he broke the all-time record for cars passed in a day at the Chili Bowl with 73 passes. Getting through all those mains on that nice soup run. So, man, I mean, what a great day at the Chili Bowl. And we're counting down the days till Chili Bowl 2027. Only got 350 some to go. So, yeah. But now we kind of turn our attention. We're finally almost out of the rut of the off season, with not a whole lot going on. And yeah, but we got the Rolex 24 this weekend at Daytona, and then the week after that we got the Clash, and then before we know it, it'll be Daytona a couple weeks later, and boom, I mean, the season's off and rolling. So yeah, it's looking like we're gonna get a pretty good, nice, honestly, probably whole motorsports season in general. I mean, NASCAR's bringing back the chase. IndyCar's got its second year of Fox as the official broadcaster. I mean, and honestly, I think IndyCar's going to be more competitive, because as much as Palou is dominant, I don't think he's winning another 8 races again. But, I mean, he could also prove me wrong and end up winning 12 races. I don't know. Yeah, and then NHRA is in its 75th season. So, yeah, and F1 is continuing to expand in America. I mean, we're about to see the debut of Cadillac, which their headquarters is just northeast of Indianapolis. So, yeah, and even though they're not based in America, Audi is debuting as well as a team. And, Ford's back in F1 as well for making their powertrain units in Detroit. So, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting year for the American motorsports landscape anyways. It's either all going to congeal and work very nicely, or somebody's going to push and shove. but we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's all we got for this week's episode of the Throttle podcast. Make sure you tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you listen and download and tell your friends and tell your homies and whoever. Make sure you also check out the Chill Photography and the Throttle podcast Instagram and TikTok accounts. And yeah, that's all we got for this week's episode. And yeah, special Monday episode. Also, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Yeah, so that's all we got for this week's episode, and have a good night, y'all.